All right. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Good afternoon. We're so excited that you're here. Thank you for your patience as we were getting queued up today. We're super excited to chat with you all and share some incredible tips and tricks here from Jim, who is Director of Information Technology at Paramount School District. This is relevant for any of those K through 12 IT teams. We know you're wearing lots of hats, so you're going to hear a lot about Jim's techniques and hear from him about how he makes, phishing management manageable with Iron Skills. So we're super excited. He's here today. Alex is going to be running our session. So Alex, I'll pass it over to you for introductions and to kick us off.
Great. Thank you with everybody. I'm Alex Paquette, the CRO and COO at Iron Scales. I've been with the organization for going on 5 years now, and we have the privilege of serving many customers and especially many K through 12 organizations, one of which who's been a customer for a long time, Paramount School District, and Jim Wolf. So Jim, I will pass it over to you for you to introduce yourself, and then we'll dive into a bit of dialogue that's helpful for the group. Just one reminder for everybody, you can leverage the chat feature that would help you interact with each other, with us as well. And there's a question tab as well. If you have questions while we're going, you can post them there, and we'll definitely have time at the end for Q&A. We'll spend the next 15, 20 minutes just letting Jim share his experiences with Iron Scales and what he experienced as a director of technology at Paramount School District. So Jim, over to you for an introduction, please.
Perfect. So you kind of kicked it off already. So I'm the director of technology for Paramount Unified School District. I've been in education as a director in education for over 20 years. We're a district of about 12 to 13,000 students. We have 2,000 employees and the equivalent amount of endpoints, so 14 to 15,000 endpoints and mailboxes.
Great, thanks, Jim. So first, Jim, you all have been a customer of Iron Skills for a few years. It'd be helpful, talk a little bit about your experience and maybe paint a picture of what a typical day looks like managing email. Most you see from independent research, most researchers say over 90% of breaches start in email. So what does it look like managing your email security today versus maybe what it was before you had a solution like Iron Scales?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know how everyone else feels that's on the webinar, if they're in the technology space, obviously, but I strongly concur that email is our biggest attack surface that we have the least amount of control over because of the human element. When you're looking at, your firewalls, there's all kinds of things that you can put in place from a physical security perspective and other cybersecurity tools. But email, there's so many ways in, and we always have to do with and end up with the end user. And so I'll start with today. Well, let me go backwards. I know you said start today and go back, but I'll do the reverse. So we started looking for a solution because we were having a huge problem, and really COVID was the one that really kicked it off for us. That we knew we had a problem, and we were using some tools initially to try to deal with it. But once COVID happened and everyone was home, email was the primary communication tool for everyone with the staff. And then we had people that normally didn't use email on a regular basis. So we had maintenance workers and nutrition services workers and people that are not, at a high tech level. And so with that, we just saw a high amount of phishing attempts and people being compromised, and we were spending a lot of time with doing the cleanup on that. So like I said, we went down the road. We're an educational institution, so and like in my mind, no one has unlimited budget unless you're maybe a Vegas casino, right? So they're the only people that just have tons of money that can spend on this stuff. So we all try to do, find creative tools and what can we do, what we can get the most bang for our buck out of. And so we're a Microsoft shop, so we use the Microsoft A5 security suite, which worked pretty good. We also had some, free phishing simulation tools that worked pretty good. But the big problem was, like Microsoft, we'd get an alert that there was a compromised account, or we'd get notified that there was a phishing attempt, and then the cleanup involved writing PowerShell scripts to clean it up. So we spent hours and hours of time. So it was literally, okay, there was a compromise. Who else was affected? How many other mailboxes were affected? We had to go back and I don't know. I don't want to bash Microsoft, but why it took so long to pull all the data from the back end, when our experience, which I'll talk about with Iron Scales, is pretty much instantaneous. I mean, within 5 minutes, we click a button and boom, the emails are gone. And so the problem was always during the time that we were doing the cleanup, more people were clicking on the event. So before we could even though we knew about it, we couldn't get it resolved quick enough. So we wasted hours and hours of time, anywhere from, I think we talked about, 8 to, depending if it was a bad week, maybe 20 hours of a single technician. And sometimes that was multiple people. So it's not like one person spending all that time. But we discovered Iron Scales and did, the implementation. And what I really liked about it is of course, I went and evaluated multiple different products, and I did not want to change my MX record, right? And another side note on me, I also did a little bit of sales. So every vendor wants you to do a proof of concept. They want you to do a proof of concept because once they get it in, not just mail products, we all know this, right? It's hard to rip it out. Like you put in a POC of a storage unit, you're probably not going to want to rip it out. Same thing. But on the Iron Scale side, with not making a change to the MX record, we were able to do a proof of concept in probably 30 minutes, and was up and running, and we were able to evaluate it. And then as soon as, if we decided we didn't like it, the process would have been just as easy to remove it. Now for us, it was so positive that we continued with the product and ended up signing a 3-year contract, which is also unheard of for me, but for a first year. But the amount of savings, so in today's world, basically, if we have a compromised account, the portal is very easy. We go into the app. One of my techs will flag the email. We'll click to quarantine the email. It automatically goes in, scans all the mailboxes, quarantines all those in less than 5 minutes, right? So all of that is done instantly. No one has access to it. That email gets pulled. It doesn't. And then it's just a matter of dealing with usually the single user or 1 or 2 users of changing your password, or the things that go with, checking their mailboxes to make sure that they haven't gotten any funny rules in there that's trying to avoid the filter. But, and the big thing is the level of phishing attacks have gone down, right? So there's stuff that's not getting through. So we're not having to remediate as much because it's not getting through. And if anyone, I know there's a really popular application out there called Canva, which is kind of like a free little PowerPoint, you can do a bunch of stuff with it that teachers love. And we had to block for a period of time because Canva was just ripe with basically they would scrape websites, put up a fake websites, and be trying to harvest credentials. So they'd try to get you to, hey, this is Microsoft, you need to reset your password. And they put these fake sites up. And if any of those got through, before Iron Scales, they would get through, and people would click on them, and their credentials would be harvested. And then we'd have to go through the cleanup process. Once we had Iron Scales in, because it's scanning the mailboxes, all the content in the email to see what's in there as well, it would say, if it got through, it'd say, oh, hey, here's a notification. This site isn't what it's supposed to be. You want to be careful, or it wouldn't make it at all. And so we were then able to open that tool back up to our teachers, because it's like we had enough faith that those weren't going to get through. And if something got through, they were going to be notified of it.
That's great. That's great. Thanks, Jim. So with Iron Scales, we often hear from customers like yourselves that we help them maximize the security of the inbox, that we unburden their administrative teams, and we empower their users. So along that first point, you talked a little bit about securing your footprint. You gave a Canva example. Help us understand a little bit, what are the types of threats you see your organization target with when it comes to email? You mentioned Canva, but in a general sense, how have you noticed your threat protection from an automated standpoint with Iron Scales? Now, the way that your users were targeted, how that's changed and evolved over time, and maybe how Iron Scales played a part in protecting against that.
Yeah, so one of the big features of Iron Scales as well, like I said, you can try to do this on your own, but having the integrated training modules that are built into it. So I would say the big thing that stood out is the awareness of my end user, and the end users. So like you said, we had the our big ones that we had were the gift card scams. So people impersonation attempts was a really big one. So we've only had one on the fiscal side, and actually Iron Scales alerted to it. So we haven't had it happen on the fiscal side. But the big one was school websites post who their principal is and all that, and so there'd be an impersonation attempt, and then they would say, oh, this is the how the gift card scam works. So they would do that, and then teachers would go and click on that, and then buy a gift card with their own personal money and scratch off the credentials and send it to the person, and so that was one that was prevalent for a little while, which is pretty crazy. And then the other, really the most common one, which goes back to Canva and some other sites, was trying to harvest credentials. So getting people to log into fake sites saying, this is the IT team, you need to reset your password. This is Adobe, this is Microsoft, and once you click through, so those happened all the time. And then once we started using some of the phishing simulation tools that are built into Iron Scales and doing some phishing simulations for our organization, a lot of communication about phishing, and some of the information that I sent out came directly, so I didn't have to spend a lot of time putting stuff together. I could send it out and say, okay, this is what you need to look for. So it was really awareness was the big thing, but the phishing simulations were what absolutely solidified it. Is we ran a couple of campaigns, and some people clicked on them, and as soon as they do, then you're actually sent a link and said, hey, there's a problem here. Here's some training videos on what you need to look for. So basically educate the users, and we would talk to them as well. And now it comes to the point where when we first started, I don't think we had the report button, but you added the kind of the self-reporting where the end user community can also self-report. So the great thing is today, where anytime, because they don't want to be called out, and we do run some reports that we got approved because teachers are unions and that kind of stuff, so we had to be careful. But we kind of have this process where the first time you click on a phishing, if it's a phishing simulation, not a regular phishing, that doesn't get reported. But if you're a phishing simulation, you click once, only tech knows about it. If we run another simulation and you click on it again, now your administrator knows about it. And then you do it a third time, a top administrator at the district office probably knows about it. And then we get so we kind of have this scaled approach, like, okay, I want to be really careful, and we also come at it from, this is for your personal safety at home. You may want to share this with your aging parents, other people in your family, of like just that whole stop, slow down, don't just click on things. But so we get more calls now, just like, hey, I got this email, it looks weird. I know we have the tool. I'm not getting any, messages at the top saying it's something weird, but I just wanted to slow down. And we would much rather have that. We'll walk back. And the other thing that I get back is feedback from the end user community is super positive. They're like, we love it. There's a feature in Iron Scales where, one of the other techniques that everyone did for a long time was we all have the banner that says, oh, this email came from outside the organization. Well, what do we all do when we see something all the time? You just kind of ignore it. So that wasn't working for us previously either. The nice thing about Iron Scales is they have basically customized banners. So if you get an email from someone that you normally, IronScales learns in the background and knows your behaviors and patterns and kind of what domains you email with. So if you get an email from a new person from a domain that you've never spoken to, and everything looks clean, IronScales is going to let it through, but you're going to get a banner that says, hey, this is the first time you received an email from this person. And where I've seen that come into effect is kind of those man in the middle attacks where, yes, you're used to having a conversation from, say, the attorneys or from a fiscal organization, and somehow they get in the middle of that, and then all of a sudden you see the same person's name that you're used to having an email with, but it says, hey, this is a new person. And you're like, no, I receive emails from this person all the time. What's going on? And then once again, has the user stop, pause, go, hey, what's going on? And especially if it's not just like it's the person's personal Gmail address, it's some weird address. It's like, okay, take a pause. So having those customized banners has been huge for us. And like I said, there was at first people are like, well, I guess the good thing of this simulations is it makes them pause even when they get, and if something actually squeaks through, they're like, oh, I need to slow down, because it doesn't matter which one is this a simulation or is this an actual phishing attempt, but either way I don't want to do anything, because they're actually more afraid of being like landing on the report. Not that that's a stick or anything. It's like I said, we make it pretty light and just say, hey, this is for your own protection, you just need to slow down. And they're like, oh yeah, it looked, so there's always an education portion that comes out of that.
That's fantastic. I mean, we covered a lot of ground from the type of threats you're seeing you described a lot of credential harvesting. We see that obviously a lot of our customers, a lot of K through 12 especially, credential harvesting, impersonations, impersonating school administrators, principals, etc. This classic business email compromise, advanced phishing that, I'll share for some of the audience that isn't aware. The way IronScales is a bit different in our approach. We take an AI-driven approach that really helps understand the context of an email. Not just is there a good or a bad link or a bad attachment, but the fact that we can build context like Jim described to learn patterns and behaviors, to know is not something just good or bad, but is it different and different enough to give us a higher confidence that this could be a malicious actor trying to engage in some level of phishing. That really is a lot of the power to automatically detecting some of that phishing the way Jim just described. A lot of, maybe some of you that are out there are thinking, hey, I'm trying to solve one problem or the other, protect against the advanced phishing in BC, but also empower my users. So if you weren't aware, I think you probably are now that the way that Jim just described it, IronScales in one integrated platform does both. We do the phishing detection and prevention and help protect you against malicious phishing and the bad emails that the bad actors you're using. But we actually also then will train your users and run those phishing simulations that also give good information into your org of who are the click happy users, who are maybe more prone to click on something. And that data feeds into our system, have one integrated platform that helps you get awareness scores and risk scores. Very helpful when you're trying to have an idea of your user base and where some of the risk may lie. So that's been very helpful, Jim, as you described some of the awareness. Now I'd like to turn the conversation a little bit to the burden on your team, or how easy it is to implement and use. We know, of all verticals and industries, K through 12 educations, you mentioned, and nowadays with administrative and macroeconomic kind of things, man, the spend is light, it is tight. There's obviously very budget conscious school systems out there. In terms of the resources and how easy it is to implement IronScales, talk a little bit about that, right? It's not your traditional MX record solution where you're having to implement a bunch of rules and policies and redirect MX records the way a traditional gateway solution would do it. But the fact that it plugs in directly via Microsoft or Google APIs at the cloud email, talk a little bit about what you've experienced in terms of the time to value and the ease of implementation, and then the ease of management over the years as well.
Yeah. Clearly it's the whole reason I'm here today, right? if you go Google me, you're not going to see me doing this for any other customer. So I've told Alex and our customer service representative that this was the most impressive solution from a standpoint of so many people overpromise and underdeliver, and IronScales did exactly what it promised. It's very easy to use. And for us, like I said, the hours of time, someone put a question in here asking about incident management and how many people help and that kind of stuff in the chat. And I'll kind of address that. So I have a staff of 10, a couple of them are only dedicated to help desk. So there's 5 basically technology specialists for 15 sites and what is that, 15,000 mailboxes. So I have one primary person. So I'll talk about, got to go back to that typical day. We always respond to incidents when they happen. So basically I have 4 people that all can address any of these if they pop up at any time. And because it's cloud-based, wherever you are, if they can do it on their phone, obviously the screen real estate is smaller, or they always carry a laptop when they're in the field, or if they're sitting at their desk. So if something pops up, any of those 4 can respond. And basically we quickly go in and look at the incidents and go ahead and go through the interface, quarantine the email like I talked about. It's usually to resolve an issue, like the IronScale side is less than 5 minutes, right? So we go in and do that. And then there may be a little back-end work with resetting a password or some of those things that take a little bit longer. So say we add another 5 minutes to that. But the other part of it is I have one person that he's kind of the IronScales expert, and he comes in every morning and he'll just kind of peruse through the environment and kind of see what incidents are popping up, what is it that we're quarantining, are there any patterns, is there anything that we need to look for, what is it that we need to tweak, or do we need to get on the get on the phone with IronScale and say, hey, we have a lot of these that are getting reported that are kind of false positives. So he spends maybe 15 minutes to a half hour in the morning. The first thing he comes in the morning, he just kind of logs in IronScale, sees what's going on, sees what we need to do, and then be proactive. And then from that standpoint, like I said, our reduction in incidents, we feel has gone down at least 80%. So the time savings that we've had that we're not dealing with it. Something else I'd like to mention is that the support level has just been off the charts, right? And that kind of, so we're going into year 4, and we've all seen this with a lot of vendors, right? Like you buy a product, you have great support. As time goes on, like your support level goes down. There's less touch points. There's less going on. I can tell you, I'm going to get a call from my CSR once a month, and it's not like it's almost like the perfect waiter, right? So there's waiters like, oh, can I fill up your water? Can I fill up your water? Can I fill up your water? And then there's ones who just kind of know. It's like, okay, I'm going to check on you. You're having a conversation. I'm not going to bother you. That's pretty much the CSR experience at IronScale. It's like, I'm going to make a touch point. Hey, do you have anything? Do we need? I mean, if there's updates, it's like, hey, I want to share an update. When do you have time, right? But the other side of that is, if we stumble on something or have an issue or trying to, every once in a while there's some weird email that got in and it went to the superintendent and it's high level. We're trying to figure out, hey, why did this happen, or how can we prevent this from happening in the future? If I pick up the phone, if he doesn't answer right away, so I'm calling somebody in the US, I'm going to get a response right away. And if he doesn't, it's going to be within 30 minutes. And then we'll sit on the phone, bang it out, problem resolved. So we always get instant resolution, and that's been consistent from day 1, 4 years in. So there's been no fall off in customer support. And I have told Alex this multiple times and rave about his CSR multiple times, that it's unusual. Like, if all of you are in tech and you're all buying products, you all know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm amazed that they've been able to sustain this, and I do hammer it on Alex all the time. I'm like, this is a huge value of your company. Please don't let it die. And so for us, yeah, like I said, we can now be basically more proactive by kind of looking and we're seeing when we do have to react. It's 5 minutes. I think there's a study out there that says any phishing attempt is a minimum of 30 minutes to resolve. So if you take 5 minutes versus 30 minutes, but the incident responses have gone down. And I know for a fact, the other great thing with Iron Scale is that they actually have a customer advisory board. So you can, if you're included, you get to talk to people in other industries. So I know firsthand that there's other customers in other industries that are having the exact same experience, that, yeah, we're not unique, that, yeah, my phishing attempts, what we see, what gets through has been, is decreased by 85%. And we track that one time on a 90-day period, but I can show you that over a year, over multiple years, that it's been super consistent. And then and also another great benefit of Iron Scales is they're also not sitting on their laurels, right? That's the other big one, right? You go, I mean, I don't know what the market share is, but anybody who's gets good at something, we all see this, especially in the software space, like, oh, we got market share. Yeah, we're cruising, development slows down, and then eventually somebody comes and leapfrogs them. And I would say, at this point, we are constantly getting new features, new updates. I know the spam filtering, we just did some new tweaks that they released on that, and they're constantly working with the customers to say, okay, what's working, what's not working. Ours was a little too aggressive at first, and we were able to tweak that down. But the support that you get, like I said, I know I'm kind of raving here, but it's like, I'd be willing to bet if we opened up the chat and said, to everyone and said, yeah, how many of you have an experience with a vendor that's been 100% positive? They're far and few between, right? Like products, big ones, they work well, but there isn't all those touch points and the things that go along with it.
Yeah, we appreciate that, Jim. I think a couple reactions to what you shared. I think it's first and foremost, it's in our DNA to be those innovators and to want to listen to our customers. So that is true from the start of our company through to where we'll keep going in the future. And I think the idea of you sharing your experience of how you just described it, I want to offer, look, I know there's a lot of different organizations out there that may have slightly bigger teams, may even have leaner teams in how they operate. So a great thing like Iron Scales, we work with you to tune the level of automation that our AI allows to you and your team. So you describe, I mean, on average, our customers, I think, spend 20 hours a week in our platform. That's what we see on the average. Some people want to spend much less, and we can fully automate the incident, the email classification that, the AI makes 100% of decisions automatically. To, hey, I'd like to have a little control. Iron Scales, automatically remediate 95% of it. Let me see the last little bit that are maybe more gray area. So there's an element of our AI and solution will map to you as your organization, and we call that our adaptive AI. And we really make it fit your organization because everybody's going to want to automate and get as much time back as possible. We recognize that, and it's very important to us, and we want to serve our customers in that capacity. All right, Jim, we're kind of, our timing before we go to Q&A is going to allow us for one last question here before we go to the Q&A. So my last question to you, Jim, is for those that are out there that are evaluating Iron Scales or evaluating, just maybe thinking to myself, you know what, my traditional defenses aren't meeting the needs, whether I have an email gateway that is, again, a bigger name, a more traditional name, or native Microsoft or native Google, but I'm just unsure of a solution like Iron Scales. Just because an API-based vendor that is an AI-driven approach to email security is a newer concept to the market. Again, this has been very popular over the last number of years. Gartner talks about it a lot. But maybe people that are considering this sort of a move to an API-based vendor, what would you tell them for somebody just starting their journey, thinking about, hey, am I really going to be able to solve my K through 12 problems with a solution like Iron Scales?
Yeah, I would say, like I said, we did a lot of research, and just the fact of it is painless to try it. So what do you have to lose to try it? Because like I said, so many times it is, they want it to be painful to rip it out, right? It's like, we got it in there, we want to do it. So I think from that perspective, it's painless to try it. And when you look at kind of other solutions, it's like they have to perform, because if they don't perform as delivered, like I said, we all stick with solutions like, yeah, it's good enough, but I just don't want to deal with the aftermath of taking it out. So with iron scales, which is, good and bad for them, it's like, hey, we can do a quick proof of concept. But if you don't like it, we can rip it out. Or if you weren't happy after a year, boom, turn it off, move on, right? So I think, if you're, and then, it's, I think it's priced right. Like it's not super inexpensive, right? I mean, but the value that you get, like, you will make up what, if you do a cost benefit analysis for the timing, the time that is saved, and the heartache for your users, and the the kind of peace of mind from a security standpoint. And like I said, also I firmly believe, and everybody has their opinion on this, but email is your biggest attack surface. So to spend the money to have a product that you can, be dependent on, and basically reduce those risks for all the other risks that are out there, are huge. So I think, and that's how we came down to it. I have to sell this every time we sign a contract, and everybody asks, education, we're always pretty frugal. And it was a big jump for education to move. Years ago, we always want to buy the license. We want to buy it and own it because of economic uncertainty in the future. So getting educational institutions to move to as a service, which is pretty much what everything is now. I mean, even my switching infrastructure, the software licensing is as a service. So that's like, oh, what happens if we can't pay, right? So, from that perspective, it's like, when you look at it, you look at the price per user and the savings of time that you're going to get, you will quickly find. And like I said, when you do an evaluation, the fall off of phishing attempts, and like I said, Microsoft does a good job, but the cleanup effort on the backside is so heavy that, and I know they've gotten better. So we started 4 years ago. I went and poked Microsoft just the other day because I knew we were going to be talking about this, and they seem to, they're going to jump on. My opinion of Microsoft is always, it's like always just good enough solution. They just want to reel you in, just like, oh, especially education. The price point is cheap. That's why it's hard to jump. So I think that speaks for itself. We get Microsoft software for, I think we pay 40 cents on the dollar or something, right? Huge discounts, but the value wasn't there to just have that less expensive solution. So like, yeah, when you're picking different things, it's like, for me, it was like, hey, this is my biggest surface, and I'm going to spend the money on this. And even if I have to kind of evaluate some other things that I can do, for us, that's what worked for us. And I think, like you said, Iron Scales has been really good about, working with us on, when we're negotiating on our contract, and us telling them, like, hey, here's where we are. This is what we need to do. That I don't think you're gonna, get a better kind of bang for your buck.
Great. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate you sharing your experience in general. I will offer, connect with Jim and I on LinkedIn. We would love to share our experiences further. And Jim talked about not resting on our laurels in a lot of ways, but innovation-wise, we just posted on our LinkedIn and announced via a press release some kind of the evolution of phishing and how that's moved from phishing 1.0 to 2.0 to now what we're calling phishing 3.0, and how deepfake technology, both from email, video, audio, how all that plays together. So again, you can get a lot of that information on our corporate LinkedIn site. I just linked to some of that for my own personal one. But we'd love to be connected with you all to just keep the conversation going. So Kaylin, I will pass it over to you to facilitate. We'll take the next 5-10 minutes for some Q&A. So if you still have questions, you can enter those in. But Kaylin, over to you.
Thank you. Just before we jump into Q&A, just a reminder, this session is recorded today, and we are going to be sending it out to your emails right after. So if you want to share it, rewatch it, share it with any other members of your team, feel free to do so. You'll get that shortly afterwards. But we did get a couple of questions. If you have more questions, feel free to put them in the chat now. One of them was referred back to earlier from Daniel, Jim, when you were talking a little bit about how your team is set up. He asked about the incident management, if you were using incident management with Iron Scales and exactly how your team was set up. You referred to that and talked a little bit about how you have a dedicated person who goes in a few times each day. So I think we got that question answered already.
I did have one note as I was rereading the email. The last part of it, he talked about like releasing an email. And here's another evolution of Iron Scales is, in the beginning, only we saw everything. And now an addition that they've done is there's an Iron Scales report that now comes out to the end user. And so they can kind of self-release emails. So that was a new feature. Has that been last year or less than last year?
Years or so, and that was at the request of a lot of our customers. So we built it in there, which is a natural workflow that makes a lot of sense indeed.
Right. So that obviously, as you can see, helps. It's like instead of people saying, "Oh, hey, I think I missed this message," or it takes away a lot of the ones that those ones that are kind of in the middle, like, "Oh, is this just a shopping or some other kind of junk email that's coming?" It's like, no, I really want to. I want to get that. So give them the ability to kind of self-release and self-report.
Super helpful. All right. Another question was just about your kind of more configuration setup from Daniel, asking if you're using our adaptive AI spam hygiene feature and the Microsoft quarantine integration with Iron Scales.
And I think the AI hygiene is one of those things that they've added later. So I haven't played with it a lot. I actually saw that pop up the other day. So, I mean, when you're the innovator, right? People are going to follow and imitate, and this is what I was talking about. And we've all done, seen it before. That's like someone comes out, they're lead to market, they innovate, and then everybody else can copy. So yeah, Microsoft obviously got feedback that this is an issue, and they need to innovate a little bit more, and so they're looking at that. And I'm seeing other. I won't mention any of the other vendors, but I get hit up on occasion, and other vendors too, like jumping on the Me Too wagon, like, oh, hey, we're starting to do this. But in my experience, when I've, in California, there's an organization called CITE, which is California IT and Education, and it's all the K-12 directors in the state. And so I got a certification through that, and we all have basically a board that we can post to. We post questions to all the time. And so I do occasionally ask questions about that when I get hit up. And so I have asked, is this true? Are you seeing these results from these vendors? And a lot of times the answer is like, yeah, it's okay, but it's spotty. And I have asked the Microsoft, question, like, how are people dealing with this? So I do know that they continue to improve, and the benefit is, depending on where you're at, it doesn't necessarily have to be one or the other. We basically have kind of a double protection here, and sometimes that does come back to not bite us in the butt, but sometimes something doesn't even make it all the way, and we're like, hey, where did this go? And we have to go back to the Exchange back end. But but for the most part, I would say that I guess the answer is be like, no, I haven't integrated a lot of the new feature, but that is a fairly new feature of Microsoft, and we haven't had to deal with that.
For sure. Thanks, Jim. Just an extra comment from Daniel, was unaware that users could self-release emails themselves. So I just dropped an article in the chat, Daniel, for you if you'd like to explore that a little bit for your organization. So feel free to check that out. We had a question come in the questions portion of our webinar, really going back to the threat types that you were seeing. So referred back to at the beginning, where you were asked, what were the dangers of losing your credentials aside from the cleanup process? And do you come to Iron Scales because you were running into phishing scams?
Yes. I mean, we had to resolve it, right? So it was at the forefront for us. It was like, what is taking the most of our time? So we had to, like I said before, what we were doing before was not working. So I needed to something to get a handle on it. And, that ended up being, after looking at a few solutions, that ended up being IronScale. So, and then I see someone else has something. Alejandro, do you see that question on there?
Yeah, maybe for Alex, referring to how IronScales ensures that AI-driven automation, like phishing classification or self-release, remains accurate over time, especially given that attacks are adapting and getting smarter and evolving.
Yeah, I'll touch on this. This might be an Alex thing, because I know I've heard Ayal, who's the CEO, talk about this. That what I can say is, AI, just AI in general, right, is always learning. So when we came on, if I remember right, this has been a long time ago, that when you first sign up, they go back and scan like 90 days of your history. And this is what I talked about. Like, they see the patterns, they know who your regular ones are. Yeah, the people that are sending out these phishing attempts are getting smarter, and they're now using AI. So 4 years ago, I'd give some of my teachers a hard time, because they would click on, one of these impersonation attempts, and there would be poor English, misspelled words, and it's supposed to come from their principal. If you know anything about a principal, you have to have your master's to become a principal in education. And so I'm like, they're probably more well-spoken than that. So why, how is that not? But now fast forward to today, that, as you know, AI bots can answer questions, and it's going to be in proper English, and it's not going to be a lot of the things that happen in the beginning. So I do know IronScales has been addressing that, and as the attacks evolve and as we report things, they're continuing to do that. Do you want to touch on that, Alex, a little bit?
Yeah, I'll maybe just double click the one layer deeper, which you're exactly right, Jim. We actually can, what we call our AI, an adaptive AI, because I think the question implies correctly that not AI, all what people are calling AI really is the same. With us, yes, we have PhD level engineers that are building machine learning models. But the beauty is, with our over 15,000 customers, real time, getting data fed into our models of what is phishing and what is not, and the ability for users to also then report what is phishing, that decentralized community all feeds into our AI, that we are constantly evolving and learning and adapting to the conditions in the wild of what we know is it helps us understand contextually what is malicious as the threat actors use new tactics. So we tune our models, we update, the models learn themselves based on the data and the inputs to it. And this level of adaptive AI is the only way to keep up with the attackers. Again, the traditional means to doing this means you learn something new, you have to write a rule and policy. It is a cat and mouse game you will never keep up with. The idea with IronScales, look, are there things that get through where is AI 100%? No. And if anybody tells you it is, they're lying to you through your teeth, right? We're not going to make that claim. The claim that we will make is through these very powerful machine learning models, with scanning hundreds of millions of emails per day, we have the best data sets to inform these models to make the best decisions, so that we can make a really strong determination what is malicious based on the context and all the thousands of variables found in each email. That is your best chance at stopping tomorrow's threats. Again, read our blog that we just posted on our IronScales LinkedIn, that I actually just a couple hours ago posted as well. Our CEO talks about the evolution of the threats as well, and what the phishing threats will even look like. Not just the problem of today, but what does the problem of tomorrow look like, and how are we thinking about solving it? It's a really interesting read, and I think helps you think about, again, what is different about how the attackers are using Gen AI and a modern threat landscape, and how we're going to stay ahead of them. It's what we do all day, every day, to keep organizations like Jim and Paramount safe, and all the rest of our customers as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. I just shared that blog link in the chat if you're interested in reading it yourself. Just a couple other questions I received from pre-registration. If you have any more questions, feel free to add those in. I just saw one come through from Alejandro, so I'll refer to that one first. Do we support AI/LLM governance aligned with ENS or EU security frameworks?
Yes. We don't use LLM. Like, this is all our own LLMs, homegrown. And right when you think large language model, we actually, core protection of what we do isn't built on LLMs, based on our machine learning models. But all that's documented in our EULA, our data privacy. So again, I can give you a very complicated answer to it. The simple answer is yes, we absolutely align with all those governance, those frameworks, GDPR, and everything evolving. We're having to stay up with it as well to make sure that our AI is very compliant with maybe the needs of an organization.
Awesome. Thanks. Another question for Jim. Could you describe the most impactful change of implementing iron scales versus before you had iron scales in place?
Gosh, I think there's a few. The big one is the time savings. The second one is we're always behind the scenes, right? So we make changes all the time, and everybody expects everything just to work when you're in IT. So there's not very many opportunities where we can kind of wave a flag that people actually see. And I think that I have people in the hallway go, oh, super useful. I really like it. They know nothing about it. And they're just like, either the banners are helpful or, what I've learned, like I was resistant to take the training but now I get stuff on my Gmail. I've shared it with other people. So I think, like I said before, the time this is one of those rare opportunities where you can kind of get a little bit of recognition because it's so out there that it's not completely behind the covers. They see that they can, like I said, self-report. There's a button in Outlook where you can report if it's a phishing attempt. They see the banners. They see the training simulations come down, that it's super visible. And so, when you're doing those budget things, it's a no-brainer. My board doesn't ask me a question there because all the board members get they're in our domain, so they get it. So from that perspective, I would say like it's an easy win for you and your organization. So I would say time savings and just that it's super effective, right? So I think those are some of the biggies in there. And then I don't know if I'm reading it right, Kaylin, but I don't know if anyone else could see you as well, but there's a sign on the back of her wall, and from what I can see, I think it says "Think outside the box."
It does. It seems to be backwards, but it does say "Think outside the box." Very appropriate.
and that's what that encapsulates iron scales right there, right? That I have a combination of experience outside of education, inside, and that's always my problem with so many institutions is, well, this is how we've always done things. This is how it is. And you can't survive in the world today like that. You need to think outside the box.
For sure. Appreciate that, Jim.
No problem.
Well, we really appreciate everyone for joining us today. We're going to wrap up today's session here. If we didn't get to your question, feel free to reach out to your Iron Scales contact or reach out to success@ironscales.com. We'll make sure to get that question answered. Even if you think of it afterwards, let us know. Like I said, there's a recording of today's session, so it'll be sent to your emails here shortly. But we really appreciate it. Thank you, Jim, for sharing your experience. I think we got a lot of valuable points from today's session, and Alex for asking those questions. We really appreciate that as well. Be sure to check out our Iron Scales events page for any upcoming webinars or in-person events that we'll be at. We're all over the globe, so feel free to check that out. And we're super glad that you could join us today. Thanks all.
And Alex can connect with me as well if you have more questions that you want to dive into later. He can schedule a time. So
for sure. All right. Have a great day, everyone.
Joining us.
Thank you. Bye. Yeah.